So, good evening or good morning, wherever you happen to be. We've got Canada and the UK and
Yeah.
Japan, two of us from Japan. Um, and it is Tuesday, October 24th in Japan. And we are, I'm really excited about this particular session because I've, thanks to Hugh's suggestion last week on what to do. Well, actually, let me just back up a little bit. I was saying that I'm having intermittent participation from the members in the Aikido club. You know, students are students, right? And so I wasn't sure that I would be able to record something. And then Hugh said, "Well, why not do something on connecting sword and Aikido?" And I thought, "Well, that's a damn good idea," but I didn't really have the clear idea of what to do with it. So I tried to do that with students. Well, here's the problem. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Um, Four people said they would come to practice on Friday. These club members. So I was all set up to do some sword stuff and demonstrate and have it just the usual video with students in the dojo. Um, Only two showed up. One of them had to leave after 30 minutes, and the other came 15 minutes late. So it was totally, it was like nothing. I mean, there wasn't anything to build on. And even though I recorded it, I said, I'm not going to put that. It's not even worth sharing, right? And so I actually, though, at the same time as I got this inspiration to look at maybe this is the Aikido club, not the university students who come and go, but maybe this is really the Aikido club and where I should really put in all of the efforts. And I'm also very interested in that subject of how to connect sword and Aikido. And I had an exhibition. Here's another thing that happened just on Saturday. I went to we had the exhibition of our shodo thing in the Ginza, and so I produced my work. You may have seen it on social media. And there's a guy that always comes. He's actually from the Key Society. His name is Sano-san, and um, he is hearing impaired, so his speech is a little bit hard to understand. You have to really really listen because I don't think he ever could actually learn language by speaking. But he's so smart and he's so dedicated. He's reading all the time. He's a fourth dan in Ki Aikido. It's pretty impressive. And he's just super dedicated. And he comes to all of my calligraphy things, which is really nice. We usually take a photo. Well, this time he came bearing gifts. I'll show you what they were. One was, actually, I'll put it back in the box so you can see how I received it. Well, he had a really nice letter that he wrote in very, very good handwriting. I can read characters from handwriting. The guy is just so smart, and he's just a really nice guy. But anyway, he brings me this book. Oh, sorry, it's upside down. And this is Sagawa Yukiyoshi Sensei, Aikido Shashinshu, which means this is a historical documentation of the photographs of Sagawa Yukiyoshi Sensei, who's a top sensei, lived into his 90s, from the Daito Ryu, right? And he studied also with Ueshiba Sensei, and so he's not really an Aikido person, although he incorporated some Aikido. He's more the Takeda Sokaku Daito Ryu roots. And this is a photographic album, and it's a limited edition. I mean, the thing costs 8,000 yen, which is a lot of money. And he bought this as a gift for me. And so you have this nice book, and actually it was released a while back, but then it's been re-released. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll just show you a couple of things. This is Sagawa Sensei. He lived into his 90s, and he had the ability to throw multiple attackers and just hardly move at all and then send them flying. You may have seen things like that from Daito Ryu. And so he had this. Oh, you got a nice cat in your lap there. And then let's see. The book's in Japanese for the most part, but that's not a problem for me. But here's a picture of him with Takeda Sokaku as a young man, and like certificates, and there's all this stuff. But there's also this is him as an even younger man. He was obviously very muscular, you know, strong looking guy, but he stayed active into his 90s. And here's him as a again as a young man, you know, throwing this pile of people to the ground, and doing all this stuff that he had learned from Takeda Sokaku, which is also who Ueshiba Sensei studied with, right? So they're like brother, and there's some of his calligraphy, and it's just a fantastic book. And then in his older, this is him as an older man, although as I say, he was quite active even into his 90s. And it just these great pictures. It reminds me of the photographic album we have from Tohei Sensei, or I have anyway. I don't know, but it shows people being thrown all over the place. And so this was a really nice thing, and he's using the Joe, and so I thought, okay. And I remembered I have a see, these are all black and white photos because they were taken quite a long time ago, but you can see sort of Aiki elements in this, right? And of course, he had students. He had students who, and they still continue, and that's Daito Ryu, which I don't practice, but it's obviously it's connected. So, Julia, for your benefit, because I think Hugh and Gabriel know this, but I'll just really, really quick. Aikido. Okay, Aikido was founded by Morihei Ueshiba, who passed away in his late 80s, I think mid 80s, in 1970. No, sorry, 1969.
Right.
Just a few years before I came to Japan in 1972. He was my teacher's teacher. Actually, both of my teacher's teachers, because I studied from Tohei Sensei, who was his top student and the first one to get the 10th Dan from Ueshiba Sensei, first one. And then also I studied with Maruyama Sensei, who was Tohei Sensei's student, but also before that he was a direct student of Ueshiba Sensei for 14 years. It's just like he was with him all the time. He was even with him on his deathbed. And so Maruyama Sensei is really directly connected to that. But so then what you look back, so what are the roots from Tohei Sensei? He learned Aikido from Ueshiba Morihei, but he also learned mind and body unification, which is sort of the main, it's like Shinshin Toitsu, as they say in Japanese. He learned that from a man named Nakamura Tempu, who was also had a huge following that wasn't even martial arts. It was just more like Japanese yoga. And that's a whole nother story that's really, really interesting. There's some books in the YGU library, Heaven's Wind, which is a biography of Nakamura Tempu. You might want to read that. And then there's also, anyway, I'll tell you about those later. But and then, so he had Aikido, and then he had mind and body unification, and he also studied Shinto, basically breathing and, in a way, well, meditation and breathing from Ogura Tetsuju, who was the direct student of Yamaoka Tesshu, who was one of the major samurai in the Meiji period, who negotiated the bloodless release of the Edo castle and all this stuff. So it's an amazing tradition, and those are the three main stars in my sensei's life, right? And I'm still studying from Maruyama Sensei. And one time, actually, you'll be interested to hear this because I was visiting to teach in Australia, and we were in Byron Bay and I was staying with Michael Williams, who was the chief instructor there. And he had a really nice house way out they had horses, and it was like, there's no lights around, so you can see all the stars. I mean, you've probably seen that somewhere in Australia, but just, amazing. I had no idea there's so many stars. And I didn't recognize any of the constellations except one, the Southern Cross, because it's the other hemisphere. And then I had this insight, well, partly enhanced by the fact that we were in a jacuzzi hot tub and drinking sake at the same time. But I looked up and I saw this constellation, and I had been struggling with the idea that Toei Sensei had created this amazing teaching, but it was a little bit heavy too, because he was like denying all the others and said, this is the true way, and those people are wrong, those people are wrong. And so I was kind of struggling with that, plus just increasing demands on my time and stuff like that. I was training like 25 hours a week at one point, and that was a lot, and it was really good, but at the same time it was a bit heavy. And then I looked up at this constellation. I had kind of an amazing insight, and that was Toei Sensei found the constellation, his own constellation, which was a combination of Ueshiba Morihei's Aikido and Nakamura Tenpu's mind body unification and Yamaoka Tesshu's philosophy of breathing and ki, basically, and power and sword work. And he created what he called the Ki Society curriculum, and that was amazing, and nobody had ever noticed it before. It was very unique among Aikido. So he actually left the original, he was the first student to leave the original Aikido organization. It was after Ueshiba died, but his son was still there. And he separated, and it was a huge rift. In fact, Hugh said he found a letter. You want to tell us about that briefly, the letter that you found, and when it was dated, if you can remember? You're still muted.
I'll try and look that up.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there was an official letter that he sent out that shook the Aikido world, and this was like 1973 or four, and it shook the whole world. How could anybody leave the society and start something new? But he did, and he had a huge following, and then of course people are always splitting off. This always happens in the martial arts. And Maruyama Sensei himself left, and I followed both of them. I followed Toi Sensei, and then I followed Maruyama Sensei. And Toi Sensei passed on. Maruyama Sensei, as you know, because you're training with him every month, is still he's 87, and he's just still really amazing. But that's Aikido, right? But even Ueshiba Sensei had his influences. He didn't just pull it out of a hat like a rabbit at a magic show, right? He studied with Takeda Sokaku, who was the master of Daitoryu. He also studied the Hojo Ryu spear, studied the school of spear, and some other. He had various influences in his own life, and he had his insights and created. But he actually really was very original. It wasn't like he was just mixing things that he matched, but the influences were there, and he created Aikido, which was different from Daitoryu Aikijutsu. But the interesting thing, Daitoryu Aikijutsu, if you trace it back, it goes back to Takeda Shingen and even further, because this is where we live in Yamanashi, right? And that's the Takeda. And if you trace it even back further, it goes to the Aizu clan in Fukushima, which I've also connected with. And I don't know, I just think it's amazing, these roots and back in history and stuff. But anyway, those are a lot of names, and it might not really, ring a bell. So anyway, Sano-san gave me this book. That was really good. He also gave me another book, which was called, well, here it is. It's in Japanese. So it says, this is Ueshiba, The Teachings of Ueshiba Sensei. Okay. And so this is by, let's see, a man named Hayakawa Sosuke. Anyway, it's pretty amazing. This guy he's an older man, so he's probably the same generation. He studied, so this is another perspective on Ueshiba Sensei, but it's really interesting. He talks about Toi Sensei, and he talks about, he quotes Ueshiba Sensei a lot, some of the things that he said. Now, in preparation for tonight, I actually prepared some stuff from some other books as well as videos, which I'll show you in a moment. But Sano-san this was the copy he gave me, and he gave me a copy to give to Maruyama Sensei as well. So he bought all this stuff. He came bearing gifts, but he had marked so many pages, with post-it notes and then little highlights, and he found all these amazing quotes, which I will share with you. But it's to really understand. Okay, I'll just share one. So Hyoshi ga taisetsu nanda. So that means okay, let me back up a little bit. Te o hineru, koshi o ireru, senkotsu o tadasu. So what that means is you turn your wrist. I think Hugh, you wrote a poem that had something about a turning of the wrist. Koshi o ireru, you put in your hips, or you put your koshi, your pelvis into it. Senkotsu o tadasu, correct your pelvis. And then Ueshiba Sensei wa ki o dasu nante iwanakatta. So Ueshiba Sensei never talked about extending ki. That was Toi Sensei. He never said that. Shizen ni deru mono no tokubetsu na mono de wa nai no da. So he said it was a natural thing that happened, and it was not something that you had to make. So senkotsu ga hairu to shizen ni deru no. So if you put your your sacrum in the correct position, then it happens naturally. And then Ueshiba Sensei is famous for saying, if I walk, it turns into a technique. Arukeba waza ni naru. And so that's what he's saying, but this is quoted in slightly different words, so it's really interesting. And then he says, Hyoshi ga taisetsu nanda. So rhythm is important. Rhythm de ari, timing de ari. O sensei wa, jitto shite torareta to koto wa nai. So rhythm is important, timing is important. O sensei, that's another way they refer to Ueshiba Sensei, never sat still. In a way, it's hard to translate that. Jitto shite torareta. He never got caught sitting still. Let me put it that way. He was always somehow somebody would try to grab hold of him and he wasn't there. And you can see it on the films. Kanazu hyoshi o torarete iru no da. So he always caught the correct rhythm. And this is like 3 lines, and it's so interesting. It's like one after another. It's an amazing book. I'm sorry I didn't prepare more from this for tonight, but what I think I'm going to do in the Aikido Metaversity now is I'm going to actually make a series. I'm going to turn it into a series drawing on the sword and Aiki connection, and also some of the original people that were connected to Ueshiba Sensei, and drawing on information that's only available in Japanese, and even then not that easy to find. So you won't be able to find anywhere else, So I'm trying to.
Yeah, I've been trying to, believe me.
I know, I'm sure.
It's hard to find that stuff, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really hard to find. And the thing is, you have people like John Stevens who wrote a book, and it's like there's only 2-3 books out that are about Ueshiba Sensei, and they don't. I don't know. It's so limited in interpretation, I mean, I met John Stevens once, and I must say, well, I won't just for the record, but anyway, you get 1 or 2 people out there interpreting, and they're the only ones that have anything in English, and so suddenly everybody starts quoting them, and it's like, wait a minute, you don't have any access to the original source, but I do through the language, and I want to share that. Plus, I also want to know it myself, so I'll be doing that, right? Now, there are other things. There's another book which is totally amazing, and I actually did get to translate some of this. Oh, sorry. There's a Sagawa Sensei, who I just told you about, right? This is a book about him, and it's called Tomei no Chikara. So it means transparent power. The power of transparency, if you will. The power of invisibility, if you will. I'm not sure how to best translate it, but Tomei means transparent or see-through. The power of being invisible or being see-through or whatever. It's hard to translate. But I bought an English translation of this book, and it was terrible. It was really poorly written, and it just didn't make sense. And I think it was a lot of literal translations and stuff. So I thought, okay, I've got this book of photos of Sagawa Sensei. So what I'm going to do now is see if I can make a better translation. I don't have time to go through and just translate word by word, but I've got some very powerful AI tools that do the translation, and I can also check them. And so rather than trying to translate the whole book, I just took a sample, right? In fact, I just opened it. I found something that looked pretty interesting. And I just ran a translation, and I have this thing I think I told you about called Audio Pen, which summarizes your phrases. Well, first I'll be transparent. Speaking of transparency, of how I did this, I took a photograph of the page, or 2 pages or whatever. Then I ran it through an optical character recognition app that I have, OCR Clip, and so it extracted the words, the characters out of the photograph, and pretty accurately, quite accurately, because there is a very clean picture. Then I put that into DeepL and translated it, and it was a little bit garbled. I think DeepL was kind of trying to search, well, is this what you're trying to say? And then I just took that and put it into Audio Pen, and it cleaned up the sentences into something really readable and much nicer. And it took out all the duplications and anything that just didn't make sense grammatically. It just removed that. So I haven't checked it actually word by word, not that that's even necessary, but it's more readable and you still get the essence of it. And then I took the same thing and I ran it through Audio Pen directly, but you can set to go one from one language to the other. So it translates and summarizes or cleans up the sentences. So that's what I have. And that's what I want to share with you, just for the record. And I have some videos to share also, but okay, this is from Transparent Power. Okay, this is excerpts. Okay, it's just, page and a half. So I'll just share it if I may. And you tell me what you think. Now, remember, Sagawa Sensei is a major genius figure from the Takeda Sokaku school of Daitoryu. But he also had met Ueshiba Sensei and some other things. So anyway, from a young age, sorry, this is actually about Sagawa Sensei. So it's not by him, but it's making reference to things that he said and did. So the author speaking, this is one of his students, I suppose. From a young age, I've always had the habit of writing down memorable quotes from teachers, regardless of the subject matter. When I was practicing Aikido, I noted down sayings like, once you're over 80, you lose your strength, so you can only rely on your energy. Or energy is the king of power. And don't push yourself too hard when you're young because it will take a toll on your body later. Practice lightly. I'm pretty sure that was Tohei Sensei saying that because I remember him saying those things. However, it was extremely difficult to take notes on the teachings of Morihei Ueshiba, who himself said, this is a quote, "No saint or sage in history has ever understood my words. Even I don't understand them." So in contrast, Sagawa Sensei's teachings were logically sound and full of concrete content. They were natural thoughts that made perfect sense once pointed out, but it would be extremely difficult to realize them on our own. Thus, I began taking notes from the first lesson. Now, with over 3,000 practice sessions under my belt, my notes have grown to more than 4,300 pages. Many valuable technical instructions are included, but for now, let's focus on three main chapters. Aiki, the union of energies. Remember, Aiki, Daitoryu, Aiki Jutsu. So Aiki, the union of energies, training theory, and the teachings of Sokaku Takeda. In terms of Aiki, it is important to clarify that the concept exists deep within the Daitoryu martial arts. It was likely discovered by Sokaku Takeda, and Sagawa Sensei grasped its principles at the age of 17. Over time, they both greatly developed this art. However, due to its complexity, it is believed that no one else has ever been able to master it. At least in my experience, I have never encountered anyone other than Sagawa Sensei who could perform Aiki. Now, this is not Aikido, it's Aiki, as I told you. Some people claim to be able to do Aiki, but when I tested them by holding them down, they couldn't even move, proving that they didn't possess Aiki. If they had Aiki, they should be able to effortlessly topple me. Having been guided by Sagawa Sensei's hands-on instruction, I can accurately assess the presence of Aiki. Sagawa Sensei was the first to explicitly state that Aiki is a technique for neutralizing an opponent. I'll read that again. Sagawa Sensei was the first to explicitly state that Aiki is a technique for neutralizing an opponent. He has consistently maintained that Aiki is a skill and a means of neutralization since he mastered it at the age of 17. In Aikido, it is said that Aiki is love, Aiki is purification, and Aiki is energy produced by unification of mind and body as one. That's Tohei, right? However, Sagawa Sensei's neutralization technique is fundamentally different from those concepts. Sorry, that's where the translation ends. Just to get too interested, but it's a whole book, right? And I don't know exactly how I'll. I'm not going to translate the whole book, but I think just samples like this to discuss, maybe just to get a comment or so before we move on, before I read the next one.
Well, that's a very good type of content for Zoom sessions like this, because we can, it's we're not in a dojo trying techniques, but
right.
if you
right.
Talk about these things, it's there's so much things to talk about. So
reflect on,
so
yeah.
It's interesting because in Aikido, Ki Aikido, we're always like saying like we are talking about Ki and it's it was just like a new thing that was
yeah.
Tohei Sensei. But if you if you go back, the roots go a lot deeper than that. And actually, it's in the word. The word key, the key is in the I key, so there must be something linked with energy. So
it goes.
maybe it's different. It's explained differently. But
For sure. Yeah.
It's funny because I was eager to hear the next part of the.
I know, yeah, me too. Yeah, I just took. I just.
So what's the difference? But it's very interesting. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that kind of subject. So
Great,
thank
great.
you for sharing that. It's very, very interesting.
No problem. Well, I'll find a way to make it a reasonable size, digestible, bite size. But I just got so excited this afternoon, so I put some samples, and I have videos to show as well. So, Hugh, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to add to, I don't know if it interests you, but you may remember several years ago, I did a book review for the Japan Society.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Which was The Life in Aikido, which was the biography of Ueshiba by Kishomaru. And there were I did actually, I must say, a lot later have one or two people read it in Japan and sort of criticized me for not knowing enough about what I was talking about, which is fine. But anyway, one of my conclusions, which I actually feel quite strongly about, because I think for me, it helps explain not just the diversity of Aikido as it's taught today, but actually diversity is good, but confusion is probably bad.
Yeah.
And you know, trying to define what's right and wrong, I don't think is particularly helpful either. And what I wrote here just at the end, I'll put up the link, but Ueshiba's Aikido was continually evolving. And those who trained with him at specific periods of his life would have witnessed different elements of that evolution. Perhaps this was the founder's most fundamental gift to modern, mostly part-time practitioners, that within the framework of the core principles, we should seek to continually evolve in mind and body, and above all, apply his teachings in everyday life.
Yeah, well spoken.
Very profound, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the five blind men looking at the elephant, and each one grabs a different part of it, and they all describe it, and they're all true in their own way, but it's not the whole picture. And I don't think anybody's ever going to get the whole picture, and we can't go in a time machine and go back and actually see them. Fortunately, we have videos, which is amazing. We don't have any videos of Miyamoto Musashi, right? So the novelists and film producers have had a field day with that, you know.
I must just say, it's very, very generous of Sano-san to do all this. So do you know what inspired him to sort of follow you so?
Well, I don't know. Because he
so diligently.
I think he just likes because I was so close to Toei Sensei. Yeah. He wants to get something of that, but he's in the Ki Society, and they're not too keen about training other places. So. Yeah. It's funny because Maruyama Sensei, you were there, Julia, on this day, but Maruyama Sensei walked in the room. We had this huge dojo, public dojo, and there was a Ki Society group training there, young people, but it was really obvious because we could recognize all the techniques. And so Maruyama Sensei, he's 87, and he's kind of strolls over to the young instructor, and he starts talking to him, and I could kind of hear, it was a bit the distance, but I could tell that he was talking about, oh yes, I knew this person and I taught that person, and so how's it going, and I don't know if it was the university club, but anyway, so he had this nice conversation with the guy, and then he came back, and one of the people in our group, I don't know if you remember, Julia, that guy was a little bit large, not fat, but kind of tall and big guy, with a white belt, I think, but he was from the Ki Society, and he was there, he said, in incognito, in secret, you know. He says, don't tell anybody, you know, because I'd get in big trouble if they find out that I'm training here. And Maruyama Sensei said, oh, there's no, you don't have to conceal it. He said, the other day I was at an event, and Toei Sensei's son, Shinichi, was there. He's now the president. And he says, we had a really nice conversation. And when Maruyama Sensei was made chairman of the Ki Society, Toei Sensei made him president, actually. He went to Hawaii, and they gave him a diamond ring as a present. And so Sensei had this all these years, and so he gave it to Shinichi. He says, "You're the president of the Ki Society. Now I'm going to give it to you." And they said, "There's no problem." Of course, maybe no problem for for Maruyama Sensei, but some of the students, they're really nervous about being caught. Oh, I saw you were training with them, cross training. I don't know. It's just crazy. Anyway, just unless you have something specific to add to that or question, Julia, I'll move on. Because
yeah, no, I'm happy to keep going with the flow. I'm learning a lot.
Excellent. Okay. Now this is another book that I've had for some time, and it says Aikido manabu hito no tame no Kojiki Nyumon. So that means that the Kojiki, that's the record of ancient matters. It's the sort of the mythology of Japan, and it's all about this god beget that god, and my wife is really into it. She goes to regular meetings and she studies it in depth. And Ueshiba Sensei was also really into the Shinto mythology. And so this is a book for people who do Aikido to, it's an introduction to the Kojiki, the record of ancient matters, for people who do Aikido. It's a thin book, but there's a lot. Thin book goes a long way for this. I also did a quick scan but a shorter one, and it's called Excerpts from Kojiki for Aikido Practitioners. Now, I think this is not a bad translation, actually, considering that it was done by AI, and especially this audio pen. So this is from the preface. I just went to the first page and just started. I just took one page, right? So. Gabriel, you're going to have the same experience you did a moment ago. I want to hear more, but it just stops in the middle of a sentence. But I didn't want to, it wasn't the volume and trying to convey all this stuff. I just want to give you a sample. So, preface: the execution of the classic Kojiki is Aiki by Tsuyokazu Inoue and Akihiro Jiromaru. Now, I could explain who those people were. I don't want to take the time. But they're experts on the Kojiki, and they also know about Aikido. So the title of this book might leave many people puzzled. Why should a student of Aikido read the Kojiki? This is an ancient classical book written in like 700s, and it was actually orally transmitted by a man who just had heard all these stories from the emperors that went passed down through history, and so they recorded it. And so it's like it goes way back into ancient history to the gods and how they're all connected to the emperors and stuff. So why would somebody want to study Kojiki? It's because Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, once said, Aiki is the execution, that is the application of the classic Kojiki. That's the actual Aikido is the Kojiki in practice. That's what he's saying. To copy the spirit of the Kojiki in its entirety into one's own mind, and to do this by binding it into one's heart. So again, I'll read that. Aiki, this is Ueshiba talking, Aiki is the execution of the classic Kojiki. To copy the spirit of the Kojiki in its entirety into one's own mind, and to do this by binding it into one's heart. And that the source of that is a book called The Essence of Aiki, which is a collection of the founder's sayings. Probably by the son, I don't know. Anyway, the Kojiki is Japan's oldest existing history, compiled during the Nara period, which is like 700s, 800s, 700s. Okay. However, Ueshiba isn't suggesting that we study the history itself. Instead, he suggests the Kojiki begins, the Kojiki begins with a myth describing the divine era from the beginning of the world to the descent of the descendants of the ancestors of the imperial family. Ueshiba didn't view this myth as merely an ancient fantasy or a portrayal of power struggles among ancient powerful clans depicted as gods. Rather, he saw it as an illustration of the system governing nature, also represented as gods. So it was like, I interpret this to mean that Ueshiba Sensei thought of the Kojiki as a metaphor. You might think that classical Greek and mythology is the same. Jung found all the symbolism, how it connects to our subconscious, right? And so in effect, he's saying that Ueshiba Sensei saw the Kojiki as a metaphor for the energies of the universe and how they're applied. And then he wanted to show what that looked like. And so he created the Aikido arts. Pretty amazing, right?
Amazing, yeah.
Pretty amazing. Okay, so there's that one. Now, we were talking last time about Setsuna, the 1/75th of a second, and how everything's just so instant. And I'm getting ready to do a seminar on okay, no, maybe I won't go there because I don't want to take all the time just to talk about this. But basically, the idea is that there's the invisible part of the universe, and there's a visible part. So form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That's a Buddhist phrase, right? But it doesn't mean that they are separate. They're actually the same. And in modern physics, you could take a bottle. Actually, my wife just made this little illustration as we were talking about it before dinner. And so you have a bottle of water, H2O, mizu, and there's the invisible part, which is mostly empty space, like atoms, between the atoms. And then there's a visible part that we can taste. They're not separable. And if you think about haiku, it has an element of the permanence and impermanence at the same time. And all the Buddhist thoughts and even Shinto and Buddhism are not separable in that sense. So we were having this great conversation. I don't think it was a normal dinner conversation for husbands and wives, but it's pretty normal for us. But anyway, so okay, enough of that, because I want to get and show you some of the videos that I put in the okay, so I will share my screen to Gaia Town, and I've gone directly to, I don't know what happened. Oh, okay, I know what happened. Oh, I don't know what Gaia Town, has Gaia Town quit? Probably because I just left it on for a long time. Let me see if I can turn it on again and go into the Global Dojo. Bear with me for a minute. I'm not sharing my screen, am I? You just see, you haven't seen any changes, right?
No.
Okay. So yeah, so I'm just signing into Gaia Town now, and then I will share the screen. But let me get there first. Because I had it on for several hours, and I think it probably just timed out. So bear with me for a moment. Okay, there's a sound, and okay, so let me go to Zoom and share my screen, and let me know if you can see it. Okay, so I'm here.
Yep.
You notice it's
Yep.
nighttime. It's nighttime, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to add some new features, which is kind of fun. So it says go to private room. So I go to the private room. I've got my password there, and then I warp speed into the private room. And instead of going to this screen where we usually watch things, I'm going to go right. I do have a video there, but I think you've seen it before. It's the Iaido and Aikido lessons. I'll refer to it so you can find it again. But I'm going to go right into the Global Dojo here, and I'm going to show you what I put here if I can. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. One thing first. On this screen, let me see if I can share screen zoom. Right. Yeah. Can you read this? You see what it says?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Shoji Nishio. Now, he was a direct student of Ueshiba, but also, I'll just read a paragraph or so of his achievements. Shoji Nishio's lifetime of accomplishments included numerous rankings and honors in Japanese martial arts, including 8th dan in Aikido, 7th dan in Nihon Zendoku Iaido, 6th dan in Kodokan Judo, 5th dan in Shindo Jinendyu Karate, as well as training in Shindo Musodyu Jodo staff and Hozo Indyu Yari spear, which is what Ueshiba Sensei studied. He received the Budo Koryusho Award from the Japanese Budo Federation for his lifetime contribution to the development and advancement of Aikido throughout the world. He's born in 1927, and so on, it goes on. Anyway, pretty amazing credentials, right? And you also may have heard, I know Hugh and probably Gabriel, you also know about Aikido Journal. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this was formed way back in the days before internet by a man named Stanley Pranin, which interestingly when we moved to Machida, I went into a little Italian restaurant and they said, "Oh, do you know Stanley Pranin?" The owner said, "Do you know Stanley Pranin?" So, well, yes, I do. I've met him through Doi Sensei, and I know the Aikido Journal. He says, well, he used to live here. He's just moved back to the States, but the same city, the same station, and like a month apart, he had been living there. Then we moved there. So that was pretty amazing. And I sort of stayed in touch with him a little bit over the years. It was just a magazine. Then he became the world's leading curator of all the videos of these guys going way back. Basically a curator for the Aikido tradition. And then he passed away 2-3 years ago. But before that, he turned it over to a guy named Josh Gold, who's done a fabulous job. And the Aikido Journal, they had all these, since we're getting there, I want to get comments from everyone, but I just want to also show you what else I've put in here, because it's not just the Nishio Sensei is really cool here, but here I've got an actual video of a student of the Sagawa Sensei school. And it's in Japanese, but it's the visible part is, and let me just describe what is, because it's like 17 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it now, but what he does reminds me of what Toi Sensei did, but it's very, very different in the approach. The ending is very similar, but it's very different in the approach. You remember the exercise where you stick your arm out, sorry, on the screen. You stick your arm out like this, and you try to move the arm down with the ude mawashi, or you just place your hand lightly and then you just drop it down. We've all done that, right? You guys Julia, you probably remember doing that too. Oh, yeah, you're there. So you remember you have the arm out and you're standing outside of them, and you just put your hand on their arm or shoulder and you just drop it down. It's like, right? So, and it's very difficult to do, because if you tense up, you block and you can't do it. But if you just touch lightly, or just like nice kitty, just sort of softly touch, then you can move their ki, and you move their mind, and their body will follow. Well, they do the same thing, but they do it in a way it's weird looking. Like, he has the guy, if you're interested, I'll just show you that part, but he's standing there, the sensei's standing there, and the student has his arm out, and he just puts his hand, and he says it could be anywhere. It could be here, it could be on the shoulder, it could be on the knee. He just touches so lightly. It's like, what is he doing, right? And then suddenly the guy starts like getting unstable, like he's literally starting to lose his balance, and then he just throws him. He does a technique, and it looks fake, because it's like, yeah, he's barely touching him. He starts going like this, right? But I think I understand what's happening, because I get the same feeling when we do it in Toi Sensei's style, or where you just put the hand there lightly, and then you feel the mind move, and then you just go, right? You don't collide. You wait for the mind to move, and then you go, or you take the fist and you move the fist. That's the same principle, except that we don't have this like looking. But if you're interested and you have a couple more minutes, I can just show you that. Would you like to see that? We won't go over much time, but okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see if I can find that part, and it's in Japanese, so I'm not going to translate it, but you can see what he's doing. And why is that not responding? Okay, this is the right screen, right web screen. Okay, hold on. Oh, have I got it? No. Screen zoom. Oh, okay. Yeah, I had to get into the website, and then I have to click on this to open it up, or I can play it here. I don't know why that's not responding. If I can't get it to play, I will maybe post a link or something. You can find it later. I don't know, maybe because I posted it a long time ago, it just kind of froze or something. But anyway, I guess you just have to take my word for it. So what I'm going to do then instead is know that this is available. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Okay, well, I can't make it play, but it's just different. But it's in a way it's the same also, you know, because you see this happening. Then I also posted this one on the Yagyu Shinkage Ryu, which is really cool. Actually, this is just really literally like 2 minutes long. So, oh, hold on. So the Senkotsu is the sacrum. So learning to move from the sacrum. And this is Akabane Sensei. He's a Yagyu Shinkage Ryu Sensei. And this is Wako, I think, I can't remember her first name, but she's like one of the top female martial artists in Japan now. And she's been in Gekkan Hiden magazine a lot. But she also, they wrote a book called Senkotsu Soho, which is how to move the sacrum for health. But this is what they study, right? And these are all techniques from the Yagyu Shinkage Ryu. And this is a promotional video, so it doesn't really teach the technique, but so it means beautifully, move beautifully, utsukushiku. It doesn't hurt that she also is beautiful. And then strong, should be strong. So beautiful, strong, and the third thing, this is a movement to loosen up the shoulders. And this is how to move, like, I put some of these into my Namba video actually, so, or DVD, so, it's possible to teach, you know, but this is more for daily life rather than sword techniques. So it's kind of a nice little video. But these are all exercises, that solo exercises that can be done with the Bokken to loosen up your shoulders and engage your sacrum. So that's sort of a combination of Namba and martial arts with traditional ancient martial arts techniques. Okay, and fast. Fast, beautiful, and strong. Master the techniques of fast, beautiful, and strong. Oh, they have English subtitled video content as well. Actually, this whole video, DVD, I think, that says with English subtitles. But the thing is, I can't access them in Japan. They're only accessible from overseas. So if you're interested, you can get them as download streaming things. Well, you go to budojapan.com, and that's the site. And then, okay, so I will just now stop sharing. So that's the site where you can find these, and you get access to that kind of content if you're interested. But you know, you can't do all. You can't like study 3 or 4 different styles of martial arts. And really, I'm pretty much grounded in the one that I'm doing. But at the same time, being reporters in some cases for Gekkan Hiden, like we have on November 3rd is Cultural Day, and they have over 50 schools of ancient martial arts, including Yabusame, the horseback archery that originated in the Kamakura period, and they want me to come and do video interviews there. So they'll ask me questions and comments. So I'll spend half a day there. And then that evening, Kashiwaya Sensei is actually in Japan now, and he's created a movie of Aikido, and he wants me to come to their party. So that night I will go to their party, and I'll meet some of my old friends from the St. Louis dojo that I founded. So November 3rd is going to be a fun day. And I'm also involved with Budo Tourism, you know, the sports agency. So I'm on their committee, and they sent me to watch sumo, I think I told you the other day. And, you know, it gets sent around. So I'm pretty much involved in all that stuff anyway. So it's nice for me to learn various things. So maybe, because we're actually 5 minutes over, but just if we could just give a closing takeaway comment. Oh, and one more request real quickly. I want to get more members because, again, full disclosure, it costs me about $150 a month to run this platform, right? Just maintain it. So at $30 a month, I need 5 people, which I've sort of got. And some people are paying and never show up because it's the middle of the night for them or whatever. But I'm sort of in treading water mode. But and that's great because I don't want to just be leaking, like this boat shouldn't be leaking. But I would like to get more members, and I'm thinking, even though I post on Facebook and LinkedIn every week and just give a little hint, we're going to be talking about this, and I get a lot of likes and impressions from that, but not many signups. So I'm thinking, if you are of a mind to do so, if you could write me just a short testimonial and make it specific about something you learned or something you appreciate about the weekly lessons, and if you don't mind letting you use your name, or just briefly, like just so they know you're not just some initials and maybe I wrote it, but it's up to you. But if I could, and I wouldn't do it every week, but I kind of spread it out, that would give me a little bit more what they call social proof. So maybe then somebody will read that and say, hey, that's like me. I also live in Canada or whatever, and then they might be more motivated to try. And I might try some things like come on like Julia as a guest, but I've only got 20 seats. If I want more, I have to pay double and get 40 seats, and I don't need 40 seats because they don't have to be the same people each time. So what it can be, actually, I could even do like a weekend training, intensive training. So somebody pays $150 and they get like 6-8 hours of whatever, and then they're out. It's not a subscription, right? So that's a little bit where I am with it, but it would be great if you could just give me some kind of something that I could share on social media. But it's your own pace. It's no pressure. Okay, so closing comments. Guyan, I don't know if you're available. You came in kind of halfway through, but if you have anything you want to add.
Good evening, Sensei.
Good evening. Anything that you saw that you liked or remembered, or?
I joined a bit later.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear everything.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah. Well, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Sensei.
that's good. No, that's important. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Kaiten Nagi, I joined from the Kaiten Nagi lesson.
Okay. Oh, so you saw just the end. Yeah. But that's pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, that's a paid course that I just paid for yesterday, but it's only $39, to have access to all those videos and the book, the ebook, which has English and Japanese, so you can get all those techniques described with photographs in detail. So if you wanted to actually incorporate that in your practice, I would highly recommend it. If you have a dojo and you want to combine sword training with, so I didn't really want to do a different style of Aikido of Iaido because it gets too confusing. But he studied Iaido, but he uses the Bokken with Aikido. So to me, that's not going to be confusing. But I was also impressive to see that they start Gokyu test includes Kaiten Nage. So Julia, you took the Gokyu test. Now we don't have any Zempo Nage on that, but it's pretty complicated technique actually when they start with it. Anyway, so Julia, maybe you can comment on something from today. Takeaway.
I think what was interesting when you were reading from the first reading was the distinguishing of energy. I thought that really stuck out to me, and I was like, I'm thinking, how do I conceptualize that concept? Yeah. So I'm going to ponder that for a week.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you'll get a copy of the Zoom, so if you want to go back and hear it again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thanks always for your enthusiastic participation. We really appreciate it. Okay, Gabriel, you want to join some?
Well, you're on the right track. I'm just saying, just follow that track that you're on, because it's really we can do a lot of sessions just exploring all this, all these roots, all these the Takeda clan roots, the Yamako Teshu roots, and I mean it's pretty wide. And a lot of those things we don't have access if you don't speak Japanese, and it's even if I doesn't understand it, even if you speak Japanese, you're not gonna
Yeah,
find
it's
that.
not easy
that
access,
easy.
right?
So, for me in Canada, you can imagine it's very hard to find anything, and
Oh,
it's always the same books, as you said. And if you, as I understand it, it's sometimes translated from one source, and just
yeah.
but that's not that reliable. So
No.
it's very interesting. You're on the right track. Continue on that track is very interesting. So
Great.
thank you so
Well,
much.
oh, my pleasure. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have students in my Samurai Code and Culture class from, I don't have 40 students in the class, but we have students from over 40 countries, and Julia knows because she went to school there. But there are students from around the world, right? And they're like, some of them are well traveled, and some of them are really good artists, like Julia being one of them. They're very good at drawing or music or something like this. But sometimes I'm amazed at things that they don't know. Like I had written something in the lesson about polishing the six senses, and then I realized, well, I don't know, something just made me think. Can somebody give me an example of how you do that? And there's all these blank faces. There's 20 people in the room, all these blank faces, and I said, well, oh, sorry, this was in the calligraphy class where I do have 40 people, and they should have known better. But I said, well, so you know what the sixth sense is, right? Suddenly everybody's looking away. Nobody wanted to answer. And then, and I, sometimes it's shyness, but they literally just didn't know. And so then I said, well, how about the five senses? And I kind of just went, like this, because that's easier. But then I said, so what do you think the sixth sense is? And it was like 30 seconds of silence. And finally this German guy says, thinking? No. It's intuition. And then I realized maybe they don't even know the meaning of the word intuition. So you have hidden teachings, not because somebody's trying to keep it from you, but just because of, I don't know, different generation, too many video games, not reading books. But can you imagine not knowing what intuition was? I had to give it some examples of it. And they're fluent in English. It wasn't a language problem at all. I mean, they're all fluent in English. So, or I thought anyway. Anyway, okay. Hugh, you wanna wrap it up for us then?
A couple of things very quickly. First of all, I just put a link up in the chat on. Okay. I'd be quite interested to read about the Kojiki, but I noticed there are several translations and versions of it. So if you have time and can give us a recommendation on one, not right now, but that would be helpful.
Well,
Nishio Sensei is fantastic. I think. I mean, just that the little movement he does is lightning speed. Actually,
exactly.
He's in one place, and then he's in another place, and even on the camera you can't see that little movement. It's amazing. Anyway, the as I understand it, and we can discuss this now that you don't need to answer now. One of the key differences between the Iaido and Aikido sword is in the film you saw, he was turning his hip. Draw the sword. And in certainly in some schools of Iaido, you don't do that. You're taking it straight. You're drawing the sword straight out, so your hip is remaining fairly straightforward. The other thing I noticed, which is quite interesting, is if he was saying watch the feet. Of course, his feet were initially hidden under that. But I noticed his back foot was raised, the heel was raised, and that's interesting to me because that is very much an Iaido school positioning, that you raise the heel of your back foot. If you look at the sword style of Saito, I think I'm right in saying both feet are down. You're grounded. So there's some very interesting little differences going on there.
It is different from Saito.
We can talk about that another day.
And there is a program you can also buy Saito Sensei's program for $39 if you want to, but there's only so much you can, you know. But but we don't raise our heels in Mugairyu either. But we do draw the hip back, not as much as he does. So there are differences. So I don't want to get like confused myself about like, well, what am I doing? Because I really need to learn the Iaido kata myself, because I've got a couple of big stages coming up in front of like 2,000 people next month on the 18th in Kyushu.
Well, what I think part of it, he explained it very well at the end, because part of it is, he says this is the Iaido sword, so we're not actually trying to kill somebody.
Right. Yeah.
We're using the Bokken as a almost a teaching.
Well, he said it was the Aikido sword, not the Iaido sword, because the Iaido sword.
Sorry, the Aikido sword is not for killing. It's almost just as a teaching aid in a sense, whereas Iaido is much more a direct,
or the ability to,
the ability to, So anyway, that's all I'd say.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And remember, I'm going to stay on these themes for a while, and there's just so much. I mean, I didn't even show you all the books, you know, and there's so many books and so many themes, and I can introduce little segments of the different parts of it, and we can play with it, maybe even practice something, because I think you probably all have a Bokken nearby. And I can put myself on the screen. I don't have to like stop screen sharing. I can put myself on the screen. You can still see me. And so, I'm just really excited about the potential for that. Okay. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one. And I will.
Thank you very much, Sensei.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll
Thank you very much, Sensei.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a nice evening.
All right.
Send you the Zoom link. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.